Nasima sat by the window every morning, watching the same street she had walked down for 20 years. Her fingers trembled slightly from age, but she still moved with the grace of a woman who once carried the weight of the world alone. She had raised her only son, Sean, after her husband's death, choosing never to remarry, devoting her entire life to him. They lived in a modest house in a quiet HOA neighborhood, well-kept lawns, clean sidewalks, polite neighbors. But Nasima had learned that not everything that looked perfect from the outside was safe on the inside. 10 years ago, Sean had begged her to move in with him. "Ami, this house is big. You shouldn't be alone anymore. You've done so much. Let me take care of you now," he had said, his eyes full of emotion. Nasima had smiled through tears. For years, she had struggled alone, working long shifts at a hospital, cooking simple meals, walking home at midnight just to make ends meet. When Sean finished college and landed a good job, she had felt the weight begin to lift. She had dreamed of this chapter, living with her grown son, helping raise his children, feeling loved and needed. But dreams have a cruel way of fading. At first, everything was warm. Rabia, her daughter-in-law, had seemed sweet, respectful, soft-spoken. Nasima helped around the house, cooked meals, told stories to the children. The house was full of laughter, and her heart had swelled with joy. But slowly, almost invisibly, things changed. It started with whispers. Rabia would mutter complaints when Sean wasn't around. "Why does she always cook with so much oil? She smells like balm all the time. The kids don't need bedtime stories anymore." Then, things began disappearing. Her spices vanished from the cabinet. Her prayer mat was folded and shoved into a closet. The family group chat stopped, including her. Nasima felt herself fading inside the home she thought she belonged to. Every time she tried to talk to Sean, he brushed her off. "Ami, don't overthink. Rabia's just tired." "Tired of what?" she once asked. "Of me existing?" He didn't answer. Then came the rules, quietly enforced. Never said out loud, but very real. Don't sit in the living room when guests are over. Don't touch the thermostat. Don't correct the children. Don't cook unless asked. She was becoming a ghost in her own son's home. One rainy afternoon, everything changed. Sean returned from work early, a rare event. Rabia stood beside him, arms folded tightly across her chest. There was a silence between them that felt heavy, like they had rehearsed something. Nasima was in the kitchen making lentil soup, her favorite. "Ami, can we talk?" Sean's voice was oddly formal. She wiped her hands and came into the living room. Rabia didn't sit. Sean cleared his throat. "We've been thinking. This house has become too crowded. The kids need space. Rabia's feeling overwhelmed." Nasima blinked. "I can stay in my room more if that helps." "It's not that," Rabia interjected. "It's the whole arrangement. It's not working." Sean looked down. "We think it's time you move out." Time stopped. "Move out," she whispered. "We'll help you find a place. Maybe that senior housing community nearby. It's clean, safe." Nasima's heart cracked. "You want me to live alone again? After all these years?" "You'll be independent again," Rabia said quickly. Tears filled her eyes. Independent or forgotten. The night after Sean and Rabia told her to leave, Nasima didn't sleep. She sat on her bed, hands folded in her lap, her prayer beads resting silently beside her. The walls that once held her son's laughter now echoed with silence. From the hallway she heard whispers, Rabia and Sean giggling softly, probably relieved. The next morning, Nasima began to pack. She moved slowly, deliberately, folding her clothes like she was folding the years of her life. Not a single child knocked on her door. No one offered to help. She overheard one of the grandkids ask, "Where's Dottie going?" Rabia replied coldly, "She's going on a long vacation." A vacation. As if being thrown out of your son's house was a holiday. Sean handed her a folder. I found a place. It's small, but it's clean. There's a bus route nearby. She stared at the paper. A one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Far from the community she knew. Far from the children she had helped raise. Sean didn't meet her eyes. When she walked out of the house carrying her last suitcase, she turned to look one last time. The door slammed shut before she could even say goodbye. From inside, she heard laughter. Nasima's new apartment was sterile. White walls, bare floors, a tiny kitchen with one broken drawer. The silence was loud, painfully loud. No footsteps of grandkids running down the hallway. No soft voices of bedtime stories. No warmth in the corners of the home. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the creak of the old floorboards. She sat down at the window and stared out. There was no garden, no neighbors waving, no children playing. She was utterly alone. Her phone remained silent. No calls, no texts, not even from Sean. She scrolled through old photos, Sean's graduation, his wedding, the day he asked her to move in. She had been smiling in every single picture. Had he ever meant it? Was it love or obligation? That night, she cried quietly under her blanket, biting the corner so no one would hear her sobs, though there was no one left to hear anyway. 3 weeks passed. Nasima did not reach out. She waited, hoping, praying, but nothing came. Then, something strange happened. A neighbor from the old HOA called her. "Auntie, are you okay? People are talking." "Talking?" Nasima asked, confused. "They're saying you left because you were mentally unstable, that you were making Rabia uncomfortable, that you were becoming forgetful and possibly dangerous." Nasima's breath caught. That wasn't just a lie, it was a knife. Was this how they were justifying her exile? Painting her as a burden, a threat, a liability? Her hands trembled with rage and heartbreak. She had sacrificed her youth, her health, her entire life. And now she was being reduced to a rumor. She tried calling Sean. He didn't pick up. She left a message. "I heard what you said about me. Please, if there's even a shred of love left, tell me it isn't true." No reply. Days passed. And then, she got a voicemail from her youngest grandson. "Dottie, why don't you want to see us anymore? Mama said you didn't like being here." She dropped the phone. One Thursday morning, a knock broke the silence in Nasima's apartment. She hesitated before opening it. She didn't get visitors. It was Farah, her old neighbor from the HOA, an elderly widow with kind eyes and a voice that still carried strength. "I heard what happened," Farah said, stepping inside without waiting. "I knew something wasn't right. You disappeared like a ghost." Nasima fought tears as she poured chai for them both. For the first time in weeks, someone asked her how she was. They talked for hours. By the end of it, Farah was shaking her head. "They can't get away with this. People think you abandoned them, that you were a problem." "I don't want revenge," Nasima whispered. "I just want to be remembered as a mother who loved." Farah leaned in. "Then it's time someone else told your story." A few days later, Farah created a post on a local neighborhood forum titled, "The Mother Who Was Erased, a True Story from Our HOA." She detailed Nasima's sacrifices, how she raised Sean alone, how she never asked for anything in return, and how she was thrown out and smeared with false rumors. Farah didn't mention names, but neighbors began putting pieces together. Comments flooded in. "We always thought she was the heart of that house. I remember her walking the kids to school while Rabia shopped all day. This is heartbreaking. I want to help." The post was shared hundreds of times. Then came the message. An anonymous woman emailed Nasima. "You don't know me, but I used to be Rabia's friend. I stopped talking to her after the things she said about you. I want you to know. She planned this. She wanted you gone. She told Sean that if he didn't choose her completely, she'd leave with the kids. Nasima reread the message again and again. So, it was true. She hadn't imagined the hostility. She hadn't misread the signs. She had been carefully, strategically erased. Meanwhile, back in the HOA, things were no longer perfect. The neighbors were whispering. Sean noticed it during morning jogs. Less waving, more glances. Even the HOA committee, where he was once a star member, started excluding him from emails. His coworkers began asking if everything was okay at home. Even Rabia grew paranoid. Do you think she's spreading lies about us? She hasn't said a word, Sean replied, though he wasn't sure anymore. That night, he checked the neighborhood forum. His stomach dropped. There was a photo, old, grainy, but unmistakable. A young Nasima holding Sean in her arms at a graduation ceremony. The caption read, "She gave everything," and he gave her silence. Sean shut his laptop and sat in the dark. For the first time in weeks, he heard the sound of his mother's voice in his head, independent or forgotten. He had told himself he was doing the right thing, but now doubt was seeping into his bones. Nasima's phone rang just after sunset. It was Sean. Her hands trembled as she answered. She hadn't heard his voice in over a month. Ami, his voice was dry, hesitant. Yes? I saw the post. People are saying things. I didn't know it would become like this. Nasima remained silent. He continued. Rabia's been upset. The neighbors barely look at us now. I just wanted peace. You know that. Nasima finally spoke quietly. You wanted peace for yourself, not justice for your mother. There was a pause. You really think I didn't care? You cared when it was easy. But when your wife told you to choose, you didn't even blink. The silence on the other end said everything. Word spread quickly in the community. Farah had arranged a small tea gathering at the community center. Nasima was invited, and for the first time, she agreed to go. When she entered, people stood. Some clapped, some teared up. One by one, neighbors came to her, sharing memories. I remember when you helped deliver groceries during lockdown. You took care of my daughter when I was sick. You were never a burden. You were our blessing. Nasima smiled, heart swelling and breaking all at once. Then, uninvited, Sean walked in, face pale, eyes sunken. He approached his mother and fell to his knees. I was wrong, he said aloud, choking. I thought I was protecting my family, but I destroyed its foundation. Please, forgive me. Everyone watched. Even Farah's hands stopped mid-pour. Nasima stared at him for a long moment, then said softly, Forgiveness is not just for you to ask. It's for your children to learn from. She turned away. Sean began to cry, truly cry, for the first time since he was a child. Back at home, Rabia was watching it all unfold online. A neighbor had secretly filmed the tea gathering and posted the clip of Sean's public apology. The comment section exploded. This woman was cast out by her own blood. How could anyone throw away their mother like that? Cancel Rabia. She manipulated him. She won the house, but lost her soul. Rabia panicked. Sponsors pulled out from her online fashion business. Her WhatsApp business group banned her. Her perfect image crumbled. One of her sons, her own child, asked quietly that night, Is Dadi really a bad person? Or were you lying? Rabia stared blankly. The empire she built on ego and control was collapsing. Weeks passed. Nasima's story had traveled far beyond the HOA. Local news picked it up. Elderly woman erased by her own son, sparks online movement support flooded in. Strangers visited her with flowers, meals, and invitations. She began volunteering at a local school, sharing stories and wisdom with children who didn't roll their eyes, who listened. One evening, she sat by the window, writing a letter. To my grandchildren, one day you'll learn everything, and I hope when you do, you will be kind. I was not perfect, but I was never poison. I was your roots, and no tree grows strong when it forgets where it came from. She folded the letter and placed it in an envelope marked, "For when they ask." Then she lit a candle, not in grief, but in peace.